It begins with silence. Not the kind of silence that feels empty or cold, but the kind that breathes, the kind that stretches softly between heartbeats, between thoughts, between the hush of waves meeting the shore. I sit beneath the open night, where the stars shimmer like grains of salt scattered across an endless canvas. The air is cool, the sea nearby, and above me the moon. It hangs there, calm and patient, a silver companion to the restless waters below. Its light glides across the surface of the ocean, turning black waves into ribbons of liquid glass. The world feels unhurried here. The night feels eternal. I take a slow breath in and exhale. Again, slower this time. The rhythm of my breathing begins to mirror the tide, a quiet inhalation, the sea rising, and then a long exhale, the water retreating back into itself. The boundary between the two becomes soft, blurred, as though the ocean and I are breathing together. You might hear the distant whisper of waves, or the faint hum of wind passing through unseen branches. Let those sounds cradle you. Let them wash through your thoughts like water over smooth stones. The day behind you begins to loosen its grip. All the noise, the motion, the endless chatter of the mind slowly fades. You have travelled through hours of sunlight, through moments of effort and expectation. But now, none of that asks anything of you. You are here, with me, under the same moon that has watched every tide that ever was. I have always been fascinated by this quiet companion in the sky, how it seems to follow us and yet remain distant, how its face changes and yet stays the same. But more than that, how something so far away can touch something so immense, the oceans themselves. It's a thought that has comforted me on nights when the world felt uncertain, that a soft, distant glow could move entire seas. The moon, after all, doesn't roar or command. It whispers. It doesn't force the oceans to move. It invites, not them. It pulls gently, invisibly, and the water answers in its own patient way, rising and falling, day after day, age after age. As I watch the reflection of the moon shimmer across the surface, I realize how alike we are to the tide. We rise with light, we fall into shadow, and somewhere in that rhythm we find our peace. The universe itself moves in cycles. Stars are born, fade, and are born again. Planets spin, comets return, moons pull and drift. Everything flows. So tonight, I invite you to drift with me, to follow this gentle rhythm back to its source, to understand softly, slowly, how the moon moves the tides, but not through facts and figures, not through the cold language of science alone, but through the poetry of it, through the story of a partnership older than humanity itself. For the next few hours, I will guide you through that story. We'll drift between worlds, between centuries, between myth and truth. You may not stay awake for all of it, in fact. I hope you don't. This story is meant to be felt, not studied. Let it lull you, the way the ocean lulls the shore. Let your breathing fall into rhythm with the tide. In this quiet place, beneath this patient moon, the story begins. The first time I truly noticed the tides, I was standing on the edge of a quiet bay, the kind of place where the world feels half asleep. The air was thick with the smell of salt and the whisper of the wind brushing against the seagrass. I remember watching the water creep forward over the sand, swallowing the footprints I had left just an hour earlier. The shoreline seemed alive, not in a restless or violent way, but with a steady, purposeful breath. That night, the moon was full. It hung over the horizon like a lantern, its light pouring over the waves in a long silver trail. It felt as though the moon and the sea were speaking to one another, a language older than words, older even than memory. And standing there, I realized that I was witnessing something ancient, something the world had known long before I ever opened my eyes to it. When you begin to think about it, the very idea that the moon, a body of rock drifting hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, can move the water at your feet is astonishing. It's a quiet kind of magic, the sort that doesn't need to announce itself. The tides have been there since the earth first cooled, since the first oceans formed and found their rhythm. Before there were cities, before there were ships, before there were names for the moon or words for the sea, there was this. The rise and fall, the giving and the taking, the endless pulse of motion. I imagine those early nights, billions of years ago, when the moon hung closer to Earth, glowing brighter and pulling harder. The seas must have leapt higher then, wild and unrestrained. Over the eons, the dance between Earth and moon softened into the rhythm we know today. The moon drifted slowly outward, the tides grew gentler, and the world found balance in that celestial embrace. Humans came much later, but even in our first moments of wonder, we noticed. The earliest people lived by the water, and they must have seen how the sea changed with the night sky, how it drew closer under the full moon and retreated again under darkness. They must have felt it in their bones, that the heavens and the earth were connected, that what happened above echoed below. I like to imagine a small coastal village thousands of years ago. The people sit by the fire, the stars bright above them, the sound of waves nearby. One of them points toward the horizon and tells a story maybe about a goddess who controls the waters, or a silver god who commands the oceans from the sky. They do not yet know about gravity or orbital motion, but they understand the deeper truth, that the universe is full of invisible threads. In many ways, we are still telling that same story. We may speak of gravitational attraction now instead of divine command, but the wonder is the same. The moon has never stopped inspiring myth, poetry, and longing. The sea has never stopped answering its call. The two together form one of nature's oldest love stories. A patient conversation across space, carried out in waves and reflected light. When I close my eyes, I can almost hear it. The deep hum of water moving beneath the surface. The low whisper of currents responding to something only they can feel. If the universe has music, this must be one of its oldest melodies, a lullaby written in the pull of tides. The ancients felt it deeply. In Babylon, astronomers traced the path of the moon and recorded its influence on the rivers that sustained their civilization. In Greece, philosophers wondered about the link between the full moon and the flooding seas. In the islands of Polynesia, navigators learned to read the tides and stars as one, the moon telling them when to sail and when to wait. Everywhere across the world, humanity looked upward and found the same guiding light. The moon, constant yet changing, gave rhythm to the oceans, and, through them, to life itself. You might not think of the tides as living things, but they shape the world as though they were alive. They sculpt shorelines, carve cliffs, feed coral reefs, and stir the nutrients that sustain entire ecosystems. Without them, the oceans would grow stagnant, the coasts barren. The moon's pull is not just poetic, it is vital. It is the heartbeat of the sea, and perhaps it is our heartbeat too. We are, after all, creatures of water. The tides move through us in smaller ways, the pulse in our veins, the flow of breath, the rhythm of sleep. Ancient healers once believed that the moon's cycles influenced not only the ocean but the human mind, and perhaps they weren't entirely wrong. There's something deeply familiar about the lunar rhythm. When the full moon rises, even those who don't believe in magic tend to look up. The connection between the moon and the sea mirrors something deep inside us, that balance between pull and release, motion and stillness. Maybe that's why so many of us find peace near the water. The sound of waves, the repetition, the constant returning, it soothes us. It speaks in the same slow language that the body understands. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I picture the earth as it must look from space, a blue sphere wrapped in silver light, the oceans glimmering beneath the moon's gaze. From up there, you would see the tides like slow, breathing patterns, two great bulges, moving around the planet in perfect synchrony. You would see how the continents shape and redirect them, how each bay and inlet has its own rhythm. From space, it would look like the world itself was breathing. It's a comforting thought, isn't it, that our planet is alive with such quiet grace, that while we sleep, the oceans continue their eternal dance, rising, falling, turning, sighing. Every night the moon renews its pull. It doesn't tire, doesn't falter, and every day the oceans respond. It is a promise written into the fabric of existence, one that never needs to be spoken. When I think about this connection, I sometimes wonder if the moon knows. If it feels the weight of the oceans reaching back toward it, if it senses the shimmer of reflection on the waves, the countless eyes gazing upward in awe. Maybe it does, in its own way. Maybe that pale, glowing face is the universe's way of saying, I'm listening. There is something deeply spiritual about the idea that gravity, a force we cannot see or touch, can be felt as beauty. We feel it when we stand by the sea and watch the water shift beneath the moonlight. We feel it when we look up and know that we are part of something vast, something timeless. It is the same awe that filled the hearts of the first astronomers, the same wonder that still keeps us awake on nights when the sky feels too large and too full of secrets. The tides remind us that even stillness is an illusion. Everything moves. Everything responds. The moon moves the sea moves the air moves us, and somewhere in the middle of it all, we breathe in and out, rising and falling, keeping time with a rhythm older than life. Sometimes, when I walk along the shore under moonlight, I think of all the generations who have stood where I stand now, hearing the same sound, feeling the same pull. They lived and died, built ships and temples, told stories and sang songs, all beneath this same quiet companion. The moon has been watching us all this time, shaping our world, our myths, our emotions. Maybe that's why we love it so deeply, because it's not just a celestial body. It's a mirror. It reflects not only sunlight, but everything we are, our dreams, our longing, our reflections shimmering faintly on the surface of the tide. As I sit here now, the night deepens. The waves move closer. The air is cool and heavy with salt. The moon hangs higher, its light softer now, as though dimming the world to sleep. If you listen carefully, you might hear the faint rhythm beneath it all, the heartbeat of water answering the sky. You might feel it too, in your own body, that same pulse, that same gentle insistence that everything, everywhere, is connected. And as you breathe in and breathe out, the tide continues, its quiet work. The water rises, the water falls, the moon moves across the sky, and you small, infinite, human drift peacefully in between. That is the wonder, the simple, miraculous truth of it all. The moon moves the tides, and the tides move us. There is a stillness that lives between worlds, the space where memory and time overlap. When I close my eyes, the sound of the tide carries me backward. The rhythm of the sea becomes a portal, its slow breathing pulling me through centuries. Each wave retreats and returns as if whispering stories long, forgotten. And somewhere between the inhale and exhale of the ocean, I find myself standing at the dawn of human wonder. The air is different here. The stars seem closer, sharper, as though the universe has not yet learned the art of distance. The moon is low, immense, golden white, its reflection trembling across a vast delta where the first rivers meet the sea. I hear the faint hum of insects, the murmur of water against clay. A village sleeps nearby, its huts made of reeds and earth, their fires glowing faintly in the night. This is Mesopotamia, the land between rivers, where some of the first watchers of the heavens looked upward and began to write. I walk slowly through the ancient night. A young astronomer kneels beside a pool of still water, watching how the moon's light dances upon its surface. He holds a piece of clay in his hand, and with a small stick he presses symbols into it, records of phases, of nights, of change. He doesn't yet know the word orbit. He doesn't know of gravity, but he senses the pattern that the moon and water move together. He feels it, as if the earth itself is whispering secrets to him through reflection and time. In his eyes, I see awe, and awe is the beginning of understanding. The tide here is gentle, more the breathing of a river than a sea. Yet even so, it rises and falls, pulled subtly by that pale light above. The people of this land believe that gods move the waters, Enki, perhaps, or Nana, the moon god who guides the rhythms of flood and harvest. Each month, as the moon swells, they prepare for the rising of the rivers. The connection between heaven and earth is not science to them, it is divinity. And in a way, they are right. The night changes, the air grows cooler. I am carried forward not in footsteps, but in thought. The stars blur, then reform. Now, I stand beside a different shore. The sand is pale, smooth as bone beneath my feet. A vast black river, the Nile, moves like silk through the desert. Its waters reflect the silver of the moon, and somewhere a temple casts its shadow across the floodplain. Egypt. Here, the moon is a god as well. Khonsu, the traveller, the timekeeper. The priests of Thebes lift their eyes to the same patient light I saw in Mesopotamia, and they see not only beauty but order. The river's rise determines their harvest, and the moon's rhythm mirrors that pulse. They mark its phases, carve them into stone, and time itself becomes a reflection of lunar breath. I walk through columns that hum with the wind, through halls painted with stars and eyes that never close. The scent of incense lingers in the air, mingled with salt and smoke. In one quiet chamber, a priest sits alone, tracing a crescent shape on papyrus. He looks tired, but peaceful. He has spent his life studying the moon's behavior, not to understand the physics of it, but to keep balance between the world of men and the realm of gods. He looks up at me, as though sensing my presence. "The moon moves the waters," he murmurs, "and the waters move us." Then he returns to his writing. The tide of time pulls me onward again. The desert fades, replaced by a shoreline covered in pale marble and olive trees swaying in a Mediterranean breeze. I find myself on a Greek island, where philosophers gather under the moonlight. The sea glimmers with a restless glow, its motion slow and deliberate. Somewhere, I hear a voice reciting lines of poetry, perhaps Homer, perhaps one of the countless nameless poets whose words have long since become wind. To the Greeks, the moon is both muse and mystery. They've begun to see the world as a system, not just a dream. Thales of Miletus watches the sky and predicts the movements of the sun and moon. Aristotle writes of tides as a response to lunar motion, his mind reaching for the invisible threads that tie sea and sky together. But even they, great thinkers of their time, cannot yet grasp the mechanism. Still, they feel it. And perhaps that is enough. I sit on the edge of a white stone pier, watching as fishermen draw their boats ashore. They work by moonlight, timing their movements to the turning tide. When the water retreats, they gather their nets and whisper small prayers to Artemis, goddess of the moon and hunt, asking for calm seas and gentle winds. The night smells of salt and wine. The waves lap against the stones with a sound like breathing. It is peaceful here, a civilization on the cusp of understanding, standing between myth and science. And the moon, patient as ever, waits for us to learn her language. Time bends again. The stars swirl above me like sparks on dark water. When they settle, I find myself far from Greece across the great ocean, on an island surrounded by coral and deep blue silence. Polynesia. Here, the night sky is vast and alive. The stars are so bright they feel close enough to touch. I sit beside a navigator who studies the moon's path, the constellations, the feel of wind and wave beneath his canoe. He knows the ocean not as a map, but as a living being. To him, the moon is not distant, it is a compass. When the moon rises high, he knows the tide will follow. When it falls low and the stars shift position, he knows it is time to turn homeward. He teaches his children without books, without numbers, only rhythm, only experience. His words are soft, melodic. The moon breathes, he says, and so does the sea. When you learn that breath, you will never be lost. I look out over the lagoon, where the water glows faintly blue under the full moon. The sound of the waves is steady, eternal. It feels like the earth itself is humming, low and deep. The Polynesian navigator closes his eyes, and for a moment, I do too. I feel the same rhythm, that ancient conversation between sky and water, still alive, still ongoing. Then, the scene shifts once more. I find myself standing on the edge of a stone terrace in ancient China. Lanterns float down a river like drifting stars. Scholars in long robes watch the moon's reflection shimmer on the water. They keep meticulous records of its movement, when it rises, when it dims, when the tides swell. To them, the moon governs time, luck, and harmony. Farmers plant their crops by its cycles. Poets write of longing and reunion beneath its glow. The air here smells of rain and ink. A young poet leans on the railing beside me, looking at the sky with quiet melancholy. She moves the sea, he whispers, and my heart with it. It's strange how all of us across ages and continents have felt the same thing. The moon doesn't belong to any one culture. It is universal. It pulls not only at our oceans, but at our souls. I begin to drift back now, through clouds of memory. Mesopotamia fades into Egypt, Egypt into Greece, Greece into the open sea. The moon follows me across each horizon, its face unchanging, its pull unwavering. Every civilization has felt it, has built its stories and calendars around it. Every generation has looked up and known, in some wordless way, that it is part of them. The first observers were not scientists in the modern sense. They were dreamers, listeners. They heard the ocean's slow voice and saw its reply written across the sky. And even now, in this present moment, as I sit beside my own shore under the same patient light, I feel them with me. The priests, the sailors, the poets, the wanderers. They are all still here in the rhythm of the waves, in the hum beneath the silence, in the breath between tides. The moon has never stopped calling, and the earth has never stopped answering. When I close my eyes, I hear it again, the quiet rhythm of waves beneath the stars, the same pulse that has carried human imagination across time. The sea breathes, the moon answers, and somewhere in between, stories are born. The night has no edges here. The stars melt into the horizon, and the moon hangs enormous and pale, its reflection trembling on an ocean that seems to stretch forever. I feel as though I'm floating through the dreams of humanity itself, each tide carrying me toward another tale, another shore, another age when people looked up and tried to name the mystery. The first story comes to me in the voice of the ancient Greeks. I see their coasts bathed in silver light, olive trees swaying gently, and marble temples gleaming faintly by the sea. The moon, they said, was Selene, a goddess who rode her chariot of light across the heavens. Her hair was made of pale flame, her eyes glowed like molten pearl. Each night she guided her horses through the sky, watching over lovers and wanderers. But it was said that her heart belonged to a mortal Endymion, a shepherd who slept beneath the stars. Selene, unable to bear his mortality, begged the gods to let him sleep forever, untouched by time, so that she could visit him each night. And so, as the story goes, when the moon rises, she descends from the sky to kiss her sleeping lover, her silver tears falling into the sea, becoming the tides that rise and fall with her longing. It's a sad and beautiful image, the moon's love made visible in water's motion. The Greeks saw emotion in everything celestial, the sea as passion, the moon as devotion. Together they wove a story that explained not just the mechanics of tides, but the aching rhythm of the human heart. The sound of the waves deepens, and the scene fades into mist. I drift onward, carried by a current of memory. When the fog clears, I find myself beneath a sky that blazes with unfamiliar constellations. The air smells of salt and smoke. The sea glows faintly blue, and the land ahead is wild and green. This is Polynesia, a world of islands and ocean roads. Here, the moon is not just light but guidance. The people say the moon is a great navigator, a spirit who sails across the sky to show them when to travel, when to fish, when the tides will rise high upon their shores. I sit beside an elder who hums softly while tracing patterns in the sand. His voice is low, rhythmic, like the rolling of waves. He tells me of Hina, the goddess of the moon, who once lived on earth as a mortal woman. She grew weary of the endless work of life and sought peace in the heavens. One night she climbed a rainbow and escaped to the moon, where she now rests, her light bathing the seas in calm. When she breathes, the elder says, the ocean breathes with her. When she sighs, the tide retreats. I look out over the lagoon, and for a moment I can almost hear her breath, soft and steady, woven into the rhythm of the waves. The moon, here, is not distant. It is kin. The tide turns, and I am pulled again, as though each myth is another wave drawing me onward. The stars shift, the constellations rearrange themselves. Now I stand on the red sands of the African coast, where the sound of drums and ocean wind blend into one song. The people here speak of the Moon Mother, the giver of tides and life. They say that in the beginning there was only darkness and still water. The Moon Mother rose from that endless sea and brought with her light, but the sea grew jealous of her beauty and reached for her, pulling at her from below. Ever since, the water has never stopped trying to touch her, rising and falling in eternal pursuit. The waves roll in slowly, curling around my feet. The air is warm and heavy, filled with the scent of salt and earth. The Moon Mother watches from above, glowing softly, her reflection rippling like a living thing. And I understand the lesson in their story that creation is not conquest, but longing. That movement is born from desire, and the universe itself hums with that ache. I close my eyes, and the drums fade into the sound of rain. When I open them again, I am standing at the edge of a dense forest. The night sky above is vast and unfamiliar. A cold wind moves through the trees, and in the distance I see snow glinting beneath moonlight. This is the land of the Norse, where the moon is a flame in an otherwise endless winter. They say the moon is Mani, a luminous brother pursued through the sky by a great wolf. When he flees, the world darkens. When he shines bright, the waters swell. The Norse believed that the tides were the sea's way of following Mani's light, drawn upward by his silver warmth. To them, the moon was not gentle, it was wild, powerful, hunted yet untamed. I can almost feel that primal energy in the cold air, the deep, ancient heartbeat of a world still half asleep. Even their myths, fierce as they are, hold the same rhythm. Chase and retreat, rise and fall, the eternal pulse of movement, and then a softer vision. Lanterns drift across a quiet river. I have come to China. The night is painted in mist, and the moon glows like white jade above the rooftops. People gather by the water's edge for the Mid-Autumn Festival, watching the moon's reflection tremble on the surface. Children laugh, poets whisper verses, and lovers exchange glances lit by silver light. Here, the moon is Chang'e, the goddess who drank the elixir of immortality and rose to the heavens, leaving her mortal lover, Ho Yi, behind on earth. Every year, when the moon is full, he offers her cakes and wine, and the people honour their reunion from afar. The story is bittersweet, a reminder that distance does not end love. The moon's glow becomes a bridge between hearts, just as it bridges the sky and the sea. I sit among them for a while, listening to the gentle music of flutes and flowing water. The night feels endless and tender. Every reflection of the moon on the river seems to shimmer with human emotion, longing, gratitude, hope. It is easy to see why the tides obey her. She moves not only the oceans, but everything that feels. The current shifts again. I find myself standing beneath a canopy of pine trees, where the air is cool and filled with the scent of moss. A lake spreads before me, still and dark. This is the land of the Ainu, the ancient people of northern Japan. They speak softly of the moon as a watchful spirit, Mokor, who keeps the world in balance. When the sea grows restless or storms threaten the shore, they say Mokor is troubled, so they light fires and offer prayers, whispering, "Be calm again," and slowly the waters always are. I move from myth to myth as if gliding across waves, each story different, yet each telling the same truth in its own voice. The moon and the sea are lovers, partners, reflections. The tides are not just motion, they are relationship made visible. Wherever humans have lived, they have turned that mystery into language, into song, into comfort. The Greeks gave it love, the Polynesians gave it breath, the Africans gave it creation, the Norse gave it power, the Chinese gave it reunion, the Ainu gave it peace. Each one saw a part of the whole, a truth so vast that it could only be glimpsed through story. As I drift through these myths, I begin to realize that they are not separate at all. They are waves on the same ocean of meaning, each rising and falling, echoing one another across time. The moon moves them as surely as she moves the sea, and perhaps that's the secret she has always kept. That her pull is not only physical, but emotional. That every story ever told beneath her light is just another way of reaching for her, the way the tides reach for her every night. The air grows quiet now. The myths fade, leaving only the whisper of water and the slow turning of the earth. The moon, high and full, watches silently. I stand on a nameless shore once more, feeling the tide climb gently around my feet. It carries fragments of all those stories, with its silver tears, divine breath, the touch of gods and lovers and dreamers. The myths may change, but the feeling never does. Wonder, love, rhythm, motion, the eternal conversation between light and water. And as the tide draws back, it leaves behind the same truth humanity has always known. The moon moves the sea, and in her quiet way she moves us too. There comes a moment in every dream when light begins to change, not brighter, not louder, simply clearer. The mist thins, the stars seem sharper, and what once felt like magic begins to take on form. That is where I find myself now, at the edge between wonder and understanding. The waves beneath me still move with their ancient rhythm, but something stirs within them, a curiosity that mirrors the human mind itself. I drift with it, letting the tide pull me through centuries once more. The night shifts, and when I open my eyes, I am no longer standing on mythic shores. I am in a place of study, a quiet courtyard lined with stone columns and parchment scrolls. The air smells of oil lamps and fresh ink. Somewhere nearby, someone is reading aloud in slow, deliberate Greek. It is Aristotle's time. He believed the earth was the center of the universe, yet even he sensed the connection between the moon and the tides. I watch him sitting beneath the night sky, his gaze steady, patient. He doesn't yet have the words for gravity, but he feels it, that invisible link between the heavens and the waters. To him, the moon's power is a kind of sympathy, an unseen correspondence. As he dips his hand into a pool and watches the reflection shimmer, I can almost hear his thoughts. The sea moves as the sky moves. There is harmony here. I drift closer to listen, and his voice becomes soft and measured, the kind of speech that feels like a meditation. The moon commands the waters, he says, as the heart commands the pulse. It is not science yet, but it is the beginning of it. The wind rises, carrying me forward once more. I pass through centuries of candlelight and ink-stained fingers, scholars tracing patterns of moonrise and tide, recording them with reverence. Slowly, knowledge begins to take shape. I find myself in the Library of Alexandria. The air hums with silence, that peculiar, electric stillness that only deep thought can create. Here, men and women of many lands have gathered, their minds turned toward the same mysteries. Among them is Hipparchus, the stargazer, who first measured the moon's distance, who charted her wandering across the heavens. He looks out a narrow window toward the sea, where ships sway in the harbour. His calculations may not be perfect, but they are born from devotion. Devotion to understanding, to pattern, to the language of the cosmos. The moon's dance is no longer the gesture of a goddess. It is a motion that can be known. The light of his lamp flickers, the papyrus curls in the heat. I feel his fatigue, his wonder. He is not trying to conquer mystery. He is listening to it, translating it gently into numbers. When I blink again, centuries have passed. The language around me has changed, but the feeling that quiet reaching toward truth remains the same. I am in Baghdad now, the heart of the golden age of Islam. The city glows like a constellation of its own. Domes and minarets shimmer beneath the moonlight, and the scent of jasmine and parchment fills the air. In an open courtyard, I find Al-Biruni, the scholar who wrote of the Earth's rotation and the moon's influence on the tides. His eyes are calm, thoughtful. He watches the night sky with the patience of one who knows that truth moves slowly like water against stone. He lifts his pen and begins to write. The moon's attraction draws the seas toward it, even as the Earth's spin carries the waters around. His words flow like a prayer, each sentence as deliberate as a heartbeat. I watch as he pauses, gazing upward. The moonlight brushes across his face, and for a moment he smiles. Not in triumph, but in quiet joy. He has seen the invisible, and it has seen him back. The air trembles with meaning. The tide of knowledge is rising. I let the current of time carry me further still. The scene fades into the cold air of medieval Europe's stone towers, bell echoes, the scent of rain. Here, monks in candlelit cloisters record the cycles of the moon not for commerce or study, but for prayer. Each phase is a reminder of divine rhythm of creation itself. Their chants echo softly through the corridors, voices blending with the distant roar of the sea. Even here, without knowing the word gravity, they know the pull. They feel it in their own devotions that everything, from the turning of the sky to the beating of the human heart, follows the same divine tempo. Then comes light, a new kind of light, colder, sharper, alive with curiosity. It spills through glass windows and gleams off brass instruments. The Renaissance has begun. I feel the hum of invention in the air, the restless stirring of thought as humanity opens its eyes again. I find myself standing beside Galileo, his telescope turned toward the moon. The world around him sleeps, but he is wide awake, his breath fogging in the cool night air. Through the lens, the moon is no longer smooth and perfect. It is a world of mountains and valleys, a landscape that breathes. He whispers softly to himself in Italian, "È un mondo," a world. The revelation is simple, but it shakes the heavens. For the first time, the moon is not a divine disk, but a place real, reachable, flawed, and beautiful. He does not yet understand how it moves the tides, but he feels the connection, the same force that turns planets, pulls at oceans, and stirs the imagination. It is the same rhythm he has seen in falling apples, in the swing of pendulums, in the music of the spheres. I drift closer and whisper in the stillness, though he cannot hear me. "You are closer than you know." Time folds again, and when it opens, I stand beside another figure, Isaac Newton, surrounded by candlelight and paper. The air in his study smells of wax and ink. Equations cover every surface, lines of thought so elegant they seem almost like poetry. He sits silently for a long time, staring at the flame of his candle. Then, with a kind of quiet inevitability, he writes what the world has been waiting to hear. That the moon and earth are bound by the same invisible force that makes apples fall, that the pull of gravity reaches across the void, moving tides and stars alike. He does not speak aloud, but I can feel the change ripple through the centuries like a tide surging through human consciousness. The mystery that began as myth now has a name. Still, I wonder if even Newton understood the full poetry of what he had discovered, that his equations were not cold truths, but love letters describing a bond so vast and gentle that it could lift oceans. I float above his table, watching ink dry on parchment that will outlive him. Outside, the wind stirs, and the moon hangs high, serene and eternal. The ocean, hundreds of miles away, rises softly in answer. The tide of knowledge has reached a new shore. But even now, centuries later, I realize the wonder never left. Understanding did not banish mystery. It deepened it. The more we learn, the more beautiful the universe becomes. The moon no longer rides a chariot, nor weeps for her lover. Yet she still moves the sea. She still moves us. The same soft force that poets once called love, scientists now call gravity, and both are right. As I drift back toward my own time, I look down upon the earth. I see its blue oceans turning beneath the moon's silver gaze. The tides still follow her, as they always have. Humanity's understanding has changed, but the rhythm has not. Somewhere far below, someone stands at the shore, watching the water rise and fall. Perhaps they know the equations, perhaps they only feel the beauty. Either way, the truth is the same. The moon calls, the sea answers, and somewhere in between, humanity listens still in awe, still dreaming. The sea is never still. Even in the quietest moments when the air is calm and the moonlight rests like silk upon the water, the ocean moves, not in chaos, but in rhythm. A slow, eternal breathing that began before memory, before life. Tonight, as I sit by the shore, I can feel it again, that invisible motion beneath the surface. And for the first time, I understand the quiet conversation behind it. The moon moves the tides, but how does something so far away touch something so vast? It is not magic, though it feels like it. It is not divine command, though it inspires worship. It is something simpler, something deeper, a kind of gentle pull, a gravity that exists between everything that is. Gravity. The word feels heavy, yet in truth, it is the universe's softest whisper. It is what holds the planets in their orbits, what keeps your feet upon the earth, what binds every grain of sand, every drop of water, every star in the night sky. And like love, it does not need to be seen to be believed. I close my eyes and imagine it the invisible thread between the earth and the moon. Two companions in an endless dance. The earth spins in its great blue rhythm, and the moon circles, patient and eternal. Between them, a pull, not strong enough to break, not weak enough to fade. Just constant, balanced, perfect. The moon's gravity reaches out across the 384,000 kilometers of space, tugging gently on the earth. It pulls not only on rock and soil, but on water, that patient, flowing mirror that covers most of our planet. And because water yields more easily than stone, it rises toward the moon's pull, forming what we call a tide. If you could see it from space, you would notice something strange and beautiful. The ocean does not merely rise on the side facing the moon. It rises on the far side as well, two great bulges of water circling the globe in synchrony. Why both sides? Because as the moon pulls oceans toward it, the earth itself moves slightly too drawn forward in that same embrace. The water on the far side, momentarily left behind, stretches outward in balance. One pull, two responses, the perfect symmetry of motion and stillness. The earth rotates beneath these twin bulges every 24 hours, giving us two high tides and two low tides each day. The moon's pull is strongest when it is full or new when it aligns with the sun's gravity, combining their influence. These are called spring tides, not after the season, but from the word to leap. For the tides leap higher and fall lower in those moments of celestial alignment. When the moon is half full, at right angles to the sun, its pull and the sun's work against one another, softening the ocean's rise. These are the neap tides, quieter, gentler, as if the sea is resting. Even in science, there is poetry. The ocean's movement is not random, it is rhythm itself. A rhythm written in gravity, sung by the moon, echoed by the earth. I picture the moon above me, her pale face glowing, her influence stretching invisibly across the world. She does not command the water, she invites it. And the ocean, ever patient, responds. Each molecule of water feels her pull. A droplet in the Pacific, a wave off the coast of Africa, a ripple in an Arctic fjord, all of them lift their faces to her light. Together, they form a pattern, a choreography of motion that circles the earth endlessly. And yet, it is not only the moon that shapes the sea's breath. The earth's rotation, too, has its part. As the planet spins, the ocean's bulges lag slightly behind, pulled not just by gravity but by motion itself. This lag creates friction, a subtle drag that transfers energy from the Earth to the Moon. Over billions of years, this slow exchange has changed them both. The Earth's days have grown longer, by fractions of seconds stretched over eons. The Moon, meanwhile, has drifted farther, away nearly 4 centimeters each year, a slow, graceful retreat. And yet, the bond remains. Even as they drift, they cannot let go. The same gravity that began their dance keeps it alive, a love story written in physics. I look up now, the night sky clear and endless. The stars shimmer faintly, but it is the moon that holds my gaze. I think of the tides rising beneath her light. On coasts I will never see the Arctic ice shifting, the Indian Ocean sighing, the reefs of the Pacific breathing in and out. It is humbling to know that we, too, are part of that pull. Every atom in our bodies is held by the same force. The moon moves the sea, and the sea moves the air, and the air moves us. The rhythm is cosmic, universal. Perhaps that's why standing near the ocean feels like returning home, because we are answering a call we've always known. The science of it is precise, yes, but behind the numbers I feel something softer, something alive. Gravity, at its heart, is connection. It is the universe's way of saying, nothing is alone. Every planet, every moon, every creature in the sea, all of it held together by invisible kindness. The moon doesn't dominate the earth. She cradles it. She pulls not to control, but to keep the world in balance. As I sit here, I feel that balance in everything around me. The breeze that brushes against my skin, the waves that curl gently around the rocks, the heartbeat that echoes faintly in my chest. Each one is an echo of that same force, the tender physics of belonging. In this understanding, science and spirit meet. For what is gravity, if not the universe's form of affection? The moon's pull shapes not only the tides, but time itself. Every high tide that washes the shore is a mark of her presence. Every ebb is her soft withdrawal, her promise to return. The rhythm is endless, the relationship eternal. And when I think of the countless generations who have watched this same moon, trying to make sense of the same mystery, the astronomers, the poets, the sailors, the dreamers, I realize that understanding has never replaced wonder. It has only made it deeper. Science may explain how, but only awe can explain why it moves us so. The moon above, the tides below, they are the same story told in 2 languages, one written in equations, the other in light. And as I breathe with the sea, I find myself somewhere between them, between knowledge and peace, between fact and feeling. The water rises and falls, the moon drifts silently across the sky. The tides, like dreams, continue unbroken, eternal, and infinitely gentle. I sit once more at the water's edge, and the world feels as though it has slowed to the rhythm of a single breath. In and out. The sea inhales, gathering the moonlight into itself, then exhales, releasing it back into the night. Every wave, every shimmer, every sound of foam against the shore feels alive, a heartbeat vast enough to contain continents. The ocean, in its quiet way, is breathing, and I am breathing with it. The tide slides forward, gentle as a sigh, then retreats again as though the world itself is dreaming. It is in this stillness that I begin to move, not by walking or sailing, but by drifting, as if carried by the very rhythm of the water itself. The first breath takes me westward, across an endless horizon of deep indigo. Beneath me stretches the Pacific Ocean, vast and ancient, the true lungs of the planet. From above, it looks calm, but below, it is full of invisible movement, currents rising and falling, each driven by the whisper of the moon's pull. I float above coral reefs where moonlight dances in ribbons. The water is warm and alive, teeming with creatures that move with perfect grace. Their bodies are tuned to a rhythm older than time. The reef itself seems to pulse, its soft corals swaying like fields of underwater grass. The tide passes over them, retreating like a gentle hand brushing back through hair. The Pacific speaks in slow tones, a voice so deep it feels like memory. Its message is one of patience, of endurance. The vastness reminds me that all things move, but not all motion must be hurried. The ocean's scale teaches stillness, the kind of stillness that hums beneath life's noise. I close my eyes. The current turns. I am carried east, where the waters darken and cool. The Atlantic Ocean awaits a body of water that feels more restless, more human somehow. It has known history, struggle, discovery. Its tides have witnessed the passing of ships, the rise and fall of empires, the whispers of countless shores. As I drift above it, I feel a pulse like a living drumbeat. The moon's reflection here seems brighter, sharper, dancing across waves that stretch for miles. The Atlantic breathes deeply, powerfully, its lungs swelling with centuries of movement. Somewhere far below, the Gulf Stream carries warmth from the Caribbean northward, a ribbon of life moving through the deep. I follow it for a time, feeling its energy beneath me strong yet rhythmic, like the world's own bloodstream. The moon above pulls gently, and the water answers in kind. The tides here are bold, they crash against cliffs, spill into harbours, echo through fjords. Yet even in their might, there is grace. The sea's roar softens under moonlight, revealing a kind of peace that exists even in motion. The Atlantic teaches me about balance, how power and calm can exist together, how even the most turbulent waves eventually find their rhythm, surrendering back into stillness. I exhale. The current changes again. Now I am carried toward the Indian Ocean, where the air is warmer, scented with salt and distant rain. The surface shimmers like glass. Along its edges, I glimpse the silhouettes of islands, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, each surrounded by a halo of moonlit foam. The tides here move in quieter patterns, guided by monsoon winds and lunar pull alike. They seem to hum in harmony with the sky, as though the ocean itself has learned the art of prayer. In the silence between waves, I feel an ancient tranquility. The Indian Ocean whispers not of power, but of connection. Its waters have carried explorers, pilgrims, traders, and dreamers, each guided by stars, by wind, by the same moon, now watching me. I drift above calm bays where phosphorescent plankton shimmer like constellations underwater. The line between sea and sky dissolves. Everything glows a soft mirror of infinity. Here, the tide teaches unity. Every wave that touches one shore eventually touches another. Every motion here is shared. It reminds me that we, too, are connected not just by the air we breathe, but by the unseen rhythms that pass through all living things. Another breath deeper now. I am carried south. The air grows colder, the colours more muted. The southern ocean stretches before me, circling the white silence of Antarctica. The waves here are wild and free, sculpted by wind and distance, yet beneath their power lies something tender. The moon's light falls upon the ice, and even the glaciers seem to shimmer in response, as though they, too, are breathing. I hover above icebergs that glow faintly blue in the darkness. The tides here are subtle but unrelenting, moving colossal masses of ice like drifting mountains. Every rise and fall is a reminder of the planet's fragility, how even the coldest places are touched by the moon's warmth. The Southern Ocean speaks of endurance of cycles greater than human life. It tells me that even in isolation, nothing is untouched by the greater rhythm of the universe. Then, quietly, I turn north again. The world grows colder still, but the light softens, a pale gold mingling with the silver of the moon. I'm in the Arctic Ocean, a place where time feels slower, stretched thin by the vastness of ice and sky. Here, the tides whisper instead of roar. Pull lifts the frozen seas, then lets them sink again in silence. The movement is so slight, so graceful, that it feels more like breathing in dreams. I drift over fields of sea ice, broken like pieces of a great mirror reflecting the stars. Polar bears sleep beneath the aurora's glow. The sky dances, and I realize even the light here moves with the same rhythm as the sea. The Arctic tide teaches humility. That beauty can be found in quiet survival, in the simple persistence of life that endures even when the world seems frozen still. And so, across all these waters, the Pacific's patience, the Atlantic's strength, the Indian's unity, the Southern's endurance, the Arctic's silence, I begin to feel the full breath of the planet. Each tide is a heartbeat, each wave a whisper of gratitude to the moon. From space, the oceans look like a single, shimmering organism breathing in light, exhaling shadow. The moon circles slowly, her pull steady and kind. And all the while, the earth answers, her seas rising and falling like a lullaby made of gravity. I think of all the creatures living in that rhythm, whales migrating along ancient paths, coral polyps opening with the flow of water, crabs scuttling to the edge of retreating tides. Even humans, sleeping in coastal towns, their dreams mingling with the hush of waves. The moon moves them all. As I drift above the turning earth, I feel the rhythm settle into me completely. My heartbeat slows. My breath sinks with the tide. For a moment, there is no separation between myself and the ocean, between gravity and grace. It is then I understand. The ocean's breath is the planet's meditation, each tide a mantra repeated since the dawn of time. The sea does not fight its motion, it yields, it trusts. And maybe that is what the tides are teaching, that life, too, is a rhythm of giving and letting go. That peace is not found in stillness alone, but in surrender to the flow. The moon continues her slow journey across the heavens, and I feel her gaze like a hand resting on my shoulder. The water below gleams silver, alive with motion. The earth exhales, and for a long quiet moment the entire world breathes as one. The ocean has always been our first mirror. Long before we built cities, before we wrote words or shaped stone, we stood at its edge and watched it breathe. We learned from its rhythm before we understood its reason. The tides became the world's first teacher, quiet, steady, ancient. I often wonder what it must have felt like, that first realization, to see the sea vanish and return, to watch it rise as if answering some unseen call. The early humans who lived along the coasts of Africa, Asia, and the islands of the Pacific, they must have seen it and felt something stir inside them, something that said, "This world is alive." And perhaps, in that awareness, something within us awakened too. When I close my eyes, I see them small fires flickering along the shoreline, figures moving in silhouette, the night sky glowing with stars. The moon hangs low and gold above them, and the water shines like liquid glass. They don't yet know about gravity, or orbit, or mass, but they know pattern, they know return. They know that the sea always comes back. From that rhythm, they learn trust. Generations pass, villages become ports, and the rhythm of the tides becomes the rhythm of human life. Boats made of reeds and bark begin to follow the flow of the sea. Fishermen learn to wait for the high tide to launch their canoes, and for the low tide to bring them home. The moon becomes more than a light in the sky. It becomes a guide, a compass, a calendar written in reflection. As I drift through time, I see coastlines filled with life, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, the shores of Greece and Crete. Everywhere humanity touches the water, the same truth unfolds. We move with the sea, not against it. In ancient Phoenicia, sailors carved moon symbols into their ships for protection, believing that the goddess Astarte, the celestial mother, would calm the waters if they honored her cycles. In the Pacific, navigators memorized the moon's phases to read the ocean's breathing. The full moon meant strong tides, faster journeys, deeper risks. The new moon, softer currents, easier return. Our survival depended on listening. Even now, when I stand by the shore, I feel that same listening alive in me, a quiet awareness of something larger. The sea's retreat reveals the small hidden worlds beneath it, shells, starfish, pools that shimmer like tiny galaxies. When it returns, it sweeps them away, erasing the marks we've made. There is something profoundly human in that, the way life gives and takes, the way we build and are undone, again and again. The tides became our metaphor for everything we could not control. Love and loss, hope and fear. Arrival and departure, we saw ourselves reflected in that eternal motion, and from it we wrote our stories. The Greeks wrote of the sea as a living spirit, Poseidon's realm, yes, but also the domain of longing. The waves became symbols of desire, the moon a witness to every secret left unsaid. The tides, in their rise and fall, taught poets about time and inevitability. Farther east, the Chinese watched the moon's reflection ripple in their rivers and wrote poems about distance and reunion. Lovers separated by mountains would look up at the same moon and know they were still connected. They, too, lived by the tides not only of water, but of emotion, and so the moon became a universal language of feeling. Its pull was not only on the ocean, but on the heart. The more I travel through memory, the more I see this truth. Wherever humans gathered near water, they became part of its rhythm. In Japan, fishermen studied the tides to decide when to cast their nets. In medieval England, merchants built harbours shaped by tidal currents. In the deltas of India and Bangladesh, farmers read the moon's position to predict the floods that would feed their crops. Everywhere, we built our lives on faith in that returning water. The moon's pull was more than physical, it was spiritual. To live by the tides is to live by trust, to let go, to yield, to wait. It teaches humility. You cannot command the tide to rise, nor can you stop it from falling. You can only learn its rhythm and move within it. That lesson still feels sacred. Sometimes I think that's why the ocean calls to us, not just because it's vast or beautiful, but because it moves the way we wish to move. Gracefully, without resistance, with purpose but without hurry. When I imagine the great explorers of history, Magellan, Zheng He, Polynesian voyagers, Viking seafarers, I don't see conquest, I see reverence. I see them watching the moon from the deck of their ships, waiting for the tide to lift them forward. They may not have used the word gravity, but they felt its promise that even the farthest journeys begin with surrender to motion. The tides shaped not just where we travelled, but who we became. They gave us our first sense of time. Before clocks, before calendars, there were only cycles, the moon, the water, the heartbeat. The ocean taught us to count the world in rhythm, to measure life not by minutes, but by motion. Perhaps that's why the sound of waves still soothes us. It reminds us of that original time before cities, before words, when we were guided only by the earth's natural pulse. Even now, the tides govern us in ways we cannot see. The moon's pull affects the air we breathe, the migrations of birds, the spawning of fish. It shapes the plankton that feed the whales and the coral that builds the reefs. Its rhythm flows through every layer of the biosphere and through us. Our blood carries the memory of salt water. Our bodies are more ocean than earth. We are not separate from the tides. We are made of them. The same gravitational thread that lifts the sea lifts us, holds us, steadies us. And when we sleep, especially when we sleep, I think some part of us remembers that connection. Our dreams drift with the tide. Our hearts rise and fall in lunar time. Perhaps this is why we find peace in the sound of the ocean, because it speaks in a language older than thought. The tides have seen all of humanity's stories, our births, our prayers, our farewells. They've carried our ships and our ashes alike. They have no judgment, no beginning, no end. They simply move, reflecting the moon's light and the earth's turning, constant, forgiving, eternal. Sometimes I think that if the sea could speak, it would tell us that change is not loss, that to rise and fall is not to fail. That's surrender. Too is strength. When I look up at the moon now, I see not a distant sphere of dust, but a patient teacher. She has pulled on this world for billions of years, and still she moves with grace. She asks nothing. She only reminds us flow, and you will find your way. The tide comes in, the tide goes out, and between those two quiet movements, all of human history unfolds. There are nights when I watch the moon and feel as though time itself is breathing. Each phase, each tender curve and shadow feels like the heartbeat of something eternal. She waxes, she wanes, she vanishes, she returns. Through her, the universe speaks one simple truth. Nothing is lost. Everything changes, and everything comes back. Long before we learn to mark days or write calendars, we look to her. The sun gave us day and night, but the moon gave us rhythm, a softer, slower measure, made for the human soul. I imagine the earliest watchers standing in the darkness, heads tilted upward. They saw her face change over many nights, from a sliver of light to a glowing disk, then back to shadow. They began to count the days between her fullness. They noticed that the sea followed her lead, that animals, plants, even their own bodies seemed to respond to her cycle. Somewhere in those observations, time was born not as an invention, but as a relationship. The moon became our first clock, our first calendar, our first sense of continuity. When I drift back through memory, I see those first calendars carved into bone 30 notches for 30 nights, found in caves where the smell of fire still lingers in the dust of ages. The moon's pattern was the first thing we ever tried to capture, to understand. Her light became the measure of our days, her absence a reminder of patience. To live by the moon was to live in rhythm with everything else. Farmers planted seeds beneath the waxing light, trusting in growth. Hunters set out when the moon was bright enough to see. Women marked the passage of their bodies by her cycle, and when she disappeared new and unseen, entire communities would rest, reflect, wait for her to return. Even now, when I stand beneath her newness, I feel that same pause, that sacred stillness between what was and what will be. Every civilization, no matter how distant, felt her pull not just on their oceans, but on their sense of order. The Babylonians divided their months by her phases. The Egyptians tracked her rise alongside the flooding of the Nile. The Chinese followed her path to name their festivals, each one tied to reunion, to renewal, to light returning after absence. In every language, the word for month was born from her moon, thmona, luna, mensis. She gave us not only time, but the poetry of its passing. I find comfort in that, in the idea that our entire notion of time comes from something that repeats, something that forgives. The moon never rushes. She never falters. She wanes completely and yet always returns, calm as breath. We have built our lives around that promise. Even when our modern clocks tick in electric seconds, some quiet part of us still measures life in her glow. Our sleep, our tides, our dreams all set to her rhythm. I imagine ancient rituals lit by moonlight, priests in Babylon raising polished bronze bowls to reflect her face, Greek women weaving garlands under her full light, druids standing in silence among stones that align with her rising. None of them worshipped her as a distant goddess alone. They were listening to her timing, aligning themselves to the heartbeat of the earth. Time, in those moments, was not a cage, it was a song. I wish sometimes we still measured our days that way, not by the ticking of machines, but by the slow turning of light and shadow. Because the moon teaches something that clocks cannot, that every ending carries its return, that progress and rest are not enemies, but parts of one motion. As I drift higher above the earth in my thoughts, I watch her from afar, the moon circling in her ancient orbit, patient and sure. The earth turns beneath her, the seas rise and fall, and somewhere millions of people glance up without realizing they are following the same timekeeper. She unites us in silence. The tides of history, too, have followed her. Lunar calendars guided the voyages of sailors, the building of temples, the timing of harvests and celebrations. The Hebrew months, the Islamic months, the early Roman ones all began with her. Even when empires fell, their time still followed her ghost. But beyond civilization, beyond ritual, there is something simpler. Her rhythm feels human. We understand it instinctively, the way we understand breath. There is comfort in watching her change, knowing she will come back. Perhaps that is why she soothes us, because she reminds us that nothing lasts forever, and yet nothing truly ends. I think of the countless people who have stood beneath her light lovers, whispering beneath her glow, parents watching her rise over quiet seas, wanderers finding their way by her reflection, each one a part of her story, each one measuring their life against her patient motion. The moon as timekeeper is more than a concept. It is a feeling. It is the pulse that moves through everything alive. And what a gentle timekeeper she is. She doesn't count hours. She counts changes. She doesn't mark beginnings or ends, but transitions the thin spaces between what is fading and what is forming. I sit now beside the ocean once more. The moonlight drapes itself across the water in a long, trembling path. The tide is turning, as it always does. I feel it pulling softly at my ankles, the slow reminder that time, too, is tidal. Every breath is a wave, every heartbeat a cycle. We rise, we fall, we rest, we begin again. In the stillness between each of those moments, the moon keeps time not for us, but with us. She is patient where we are restless, constant where we are fleeting. She asks for nothing but awareness that we notice her light, that we remember what it means to move gently through change. And maybe that is the truest form of time, not the minutes that pass, but the rhythm that carries us through them. For billions of years, she has kept that rhythm not just for the tides, but for every life that's learned to listen. I look up at her now, full and radiant, and I realize she does not hurry. She does not linger. She simply turns. And in her turning, the universe learns to breathe. When the tide retreats, it does not leave emptiness behind. It reveals a world. I walk along the shoreline at dawn, though in truth I am drifting more than walking. The air is still cool, the sand damp and glimmering beneath a silver veil of mist. The moon, pale and tired, still lingers above the horizon, watching the sea breathe itself awake. This, I realize, is the hour when the earth exhales. The water pulls away, and what was once hidden beneath its weight now lies uncovered, glistening, alive, waiting. Between the tides, life continues in silence. Tiny universes exist in the pools left behind, small, shimmering pockets of sea trapped between rocks and time. I kneel beside one of these pools and gaze inside. The surface reflects the sky, so for a moment I am staring into two heavens, one above, one below. Beneath that reflection, small creatures move with patient rhythm. Starfish, crabs, sea snails, and darting shadows of fish too small to name. The water ripples as if breathing, and I realize it is. Every being here lives by the moon's design. The crabs emerge when the water recedes, their delicate claws tracing circles in the sand. The starfish cling to stones, holding fast against the pull of the next returning wave. The seaweed sways gently, already anticipating the water's return. They do not resist the tide. They prepare for it. They trust it will come back. And so, this place, this in-between world, is a lesson in patience. Every few hours, their world is swallowed, then revealed again. Every few hours, they begin anew. What must it be like to rebuild your home twice a day? To trust in an unseen rhythm so completely that it becomes the only truth you need. I reach my hand into the pool. The water is cold, soft, alive with movement. A small snail grazes the rock beside my fingers. Its pace is almost imperceptible, yet its purpose feels absolute. The snail does not hurry because it knows the tide will return. It does not fear what comes next. There's a peace in that kind of existence, a peace we often forget in the rush of our own tides, our thoughts, our worries, our endless rising and falling through the days. I walk farther, following the retreating water. The beach stretches wide now, glistening under the first rays of morning. Gulls circle overhead, their cries echoing across the gentle roar of waves. A heron stands motionless in the shallows, its reflection broken by ripples. It moves only when it must slow, deliberate, elegant. Everything here exists in a kind of still motion, the paradox of life that never stops moving, yet never feels rushed. As I drift deeper into this moment, I begin to sense the vast design of it all. The moon's gravity doesn't just move water, it shapes life. The creatures that live here in this narrow, shifting zone between land and sea have learned to dance with her pull. The barnacles cling to rocks with unyielding faith, closing their shells when the air grows dry, opening again when the water returns. The sandpipers run at the edge of waves, chasing what leaves and fleeing what returns, their rhythm perfect, instinctive. Every movement is a response to the moon's invisible hand. It humbles me how completely these lives trust a force they will never see, how every shell, every blade of seagrass, every ripple of sand bears the signature of a celestial body so far away. And yet, isn't that what faith is? To move in harmony with something unseen but deeply felt. I walk until the shore becomes rock, dark, wet, and glistening with life. Here, the water lingers longer, cradling tiny anemones and sponges, each one opening and closing in rhythm with the waves. They seem almost to breathe, their colours glowing faintly beneath the surface, orange, purple, green. When the water returns, they bloom like flowers under rain. When it leaves, they fold in, trusting that it will come again. Watching them, I think about how we, too, live between tides, between moments of fullness and emptiness, light and shadow, motion and stillness. Sometimes the world pulls away from us, love recedes, joy diminishes, the warmth we knew fades into cold. But even then, somewhere within us, something waits. Something believes the tide will come back. Maybe that's why these small beings feel like mirrors. They are reminders of resilience that does not roar, but whispers. They endure by adapting, not by resisting. The tide begins to turn now. I can hear it before I see it, the slow, rhythmic hush of water returning. The pools tremble, ripples spread. Creatures begin to move with anticipation, each one preparing to be part of the sea again. I stay where I am, letting the water rise around my feet. The cold seeps upward, but it's not uncomfortable. It feels like connection, as though the ocean recognizes me, welcomes me back into its motion. The returning waves erase my footprints, but I don't mind. There's comfort in being part of something that doesn't need to remember me to include me. As the tide covers the rocks, I think about how life on this planet depends on this endless motion, this simple, sacred rising and falling. Without it, the oceans would stagnate, the air would change, the rhythm of the world would falter. The moon's pull keeps everything alive by keeping everything moving. The crabs retreat to their burrows, the heron takes flight, and the tide swells until it kisses the edge of the dunes once more. The beach that moments ago was wide and open is now narrow again, consumed by the same sea that revealed it. And yet, nothing is lost. Everything continues. The pools are gone, but their life remains, waiting beneath the surface for the next turning. I watch the horizon, where sea meets sky in a seamless gradient of blue and silver. The moon, faint now in the daylight, still lingers pale but present. She doesn't need to shine to be felt. Her work continues in silence, in gravity, in the invisible choreography of life. I breathe deeply and realize we, too, are creatures between tides. between the moments that lift us and the ones that leave us bare, between fullness and rest, between what was and what will be. And maybe that's the secret the moon has always been whispering to the oceans, and through them to us. That peace isn't found in holding still, but in moving gracefully through change. The tide keeps rising, the world keeps breathing, and everything alive sways softly to that eternal rhythm, the music of the moon and sea, playing quietly beneath all our days. I close my eyes. The waves move around me like a cradle, and in their gentle motion I feel the universe at rest. When I rise above the world, past the whisper of wind and the shimmer of clouds, I can finally see it, the dance. From this quiet vantage beyond the atmosphere, Earth turns like a dream in blue and white, her oceans breathing, her continents glimmering in faint sunlight. And there, keeping her constant company, drifts the moon, patient, devoted, forever circling. The space between them is vast and empty, and yet it hums with connection. No music plays here, no sound passes through the void, but still I feel it, the rhythm of motion, the invisible thread that binds one body to another. Gravity is the universe's most ancient embrace. It holds planets in orbit, keeps moons from drifting away, turns chaos into pattern. And in that embrace, Earth and Moon have danced for billions of years, two travellers bound by a pull both gentle and eternal. I watch them move. The Moon circles the Earth, and as she does, she tugs at the oceans, the atmosphere, even the crust of the planet itself. The Earth responds, not as a servant, but as a partner turning, swaying, adjusting her spin in time to the Moon's rhythm. It is not a perfect circle they trace, but an ellipse, a subtle oval, full of nuance, full of grace. Sometimes they draw nearer, sometimes they drift apart, and yet the bond never breaks. They are like two dancers who never tire their steps, so ancient, so precise, that even time has forgotten when the music began. As I drift in silence, I realize that this motion, this constant giving and receiving, is the foundation of everything we call life. The tides on Earth, the stability of her spin, even the length of her days, all born from this quiet partnership in the dark. The Moon, though small, has shaped the very rhythm of our world. She slows the Earth's turning little by little, stretching the days longer with each passing century, and Earth, in return, lends her energy to the Moon, pushing her gently outward, a few centimeters farther every year. This is love written in physics, the kind that grows softer with time, not weaker. I imagine the early days, when the Moon was closer, her face enormous in the sky, her tides rising mountains of water that roared across the newborn seas. The Earth spun faster than a day lasting barely 6 hours. The dance was wild and young, full of energy and creation. But time has a way of teaching grace. The two bodies settled into rhythm, their spins and orbits aligning like heartbeat and breath. Now, the Moon's rotation matches her orbit perfectly, so that she always shows us the same face, one side in eternal light, the other in endless night. She does not turn away from us, nor do we turn from her. It is a dance of trust, slow, patient, unbroken. From space, I can see the Earth reflected in her surface, faint and blue, glowing softly in the lunar sky. The moonlight that touches the sea below is not her own. It is borrowed sunlight, reflected through her devotion. She is the mirror of our world, the silent witness of every tide, every night, every sigh. The universe, I realize, is not silent at all. It sings not with sound, but with motion. Every planet, every moon, Every atom moves in rhythm, pulled by unseen music that keeps everything connected. The cosmos itself is a dance floor, and gravity is the song that never ends. As I watch the moon orbit, I notice the small details, how her path wobbles slightly, how Earth tilts gently on her axis, how the tides below shimmer in answer. It's as though the planet breathes in time with her companion, every wave a whispered yes to the moon's call. Even in the vast silence, there is conversation. When the moon moves farther away, Earth pulls her gently back. When she comes too near, the tides rise to greet her, slowing her motion with affection. Every action is met with response, every push with pull. This is the universe's language, not of words, but of balance. I drift closer, until I can see the faint halo of Earth's atmosphere, glowing blue against the blackness. The moon's pale surface glows with reflected light, her craters like ancient scars from a time when chaos still ruled the heavens. And yet, even those marks of violence now rest in peace. What once was collision has become choreography. Every motion of the moon across the sky, every turning of the tides below, every rise and fall of daylight, all are born from this silent partnership. It is not domination, it is collaboration. I realize then how everything in existence mirrors this dance. The electron and the nucleus circling each other in invisible orbits. The heart and the lungs exchanging rhythm for rhythm. The mind and the soul trading stillness and thought. Life, love, gravity, all one song, playing through different instruments. And perhaps that is why we look at the moon and feel something we can't name, why her light feels familiar, even comforting. We recognize ourselves in her patience, in her endurance, in her graceful acceptance of change. She does not resist the pull that defines her. She flows with it. She moves not out of choice, but out of belonging. How different would we be, I wonder, if we too remembered that belonging, if we trusted the forces that shape us, the gravity of connection that keeps us in orbit with one another. As I watch Earth and Moon glide together through the dark, I feel time slowing. Their movement is so gradual it feels like eternity compressed into stillness. Each orbit takes nearly a month, each rotation a day, yet the rhythm never falters. The stars around them burn fiercely, but these two glow softly partners in an endless waltz. They have been dancing longer than memory, and will continue long after memory fades. The beauty of it lies not in perfection, but in persistence. In the quiet promise that, no matter how far apart they drift, they will always remain bound by invisible grace. I close my eyes and imagine the sound of their motion, a deep, slow heartbeat echoing through the cosmos. The same pulse that moves the oceans, that shapes the clouds, that whispers through every dream on earth. This is the eternal dance, the music of gravity and time, the choreography of patience and pull. The moon glows brighter, her surface awash with light, and for a moment it feels as if she looks back at me, not with eyes, but with knowing. She has watched everything. She has seen our beginnings, our rise, our wandering, and still she keeps moving, as if to remind us the only way forward is through motion. No resistance, no fear, only flow. I drift back toward Earth, the blue sphere widening beneath me, oceans shimmering like living mirrors. I see the continents in shadow, the clouds swirling like soft breath. The moon follows quietly, her light brushing the edge of the world like a final good night. And in that moment, I understand that all of it, the turning, the pulling, the rising, the falling, is not separate. It is one continuous motion. a single unending dance between what is seen and what is felt. I breathe in, the stars expand around me like a sigh, and in that breath I feel the music of creation, soft, eternal, infinite. The night has grown quiet now. The world beneath me is wrapped in silver ocean still, clouds adrift, mountains softened by distance. From this height, earth looks like a sleeping child, breathing in slow rhythm, each exhale turning to mist that drifts into the dark. And above her, faithful and glowing, the moon keeps watch. I float between them, between the one who pulls and the one who is pulled, and I can feel the music of it all. A song too slow for human hearing, yet constant, endless. The lullaby of motion. The moon hums her melody through gravity, through light, through silence. The earth answers with tides, with wind, with the soft murmur of waves on every shore. And together they cradle us, every dreamer, every sleeper, in their eternal embrace. I think back to where this journey began, to the moment the tide first whispered at my feet, to the first shimmer of moonlight on water, to the long unfolding of history and memory, the pulse of time measured not in seconds, but in breaths. All of it, the myths, the science, the people who gazed upward in wonder, has led here, to this quiet stillness where motion itself becomes rest. The moon taught us how to move gently, the tides taught us how to let go. And together they've shown that peace is not found in stillness alone, but in surrender to rhythm. As I drift lower, closer to the curve of the earth, I see the faint silver path stretching across the ocean, the reflection of the moon shimmering softly on the waves. It looks like a road made of light, leading not to a place, but to a feeling. I follow it, slowly, effortlessly, letting the soft pull of gravity guide me. Below, the sea moves in hushed breath, the tide returning, the water folding over itself like silk. Each ripple glows for a moment, then fades, making room for another. The air is full of that delicate sound, the eternal hush of water meeting land, retreating and returning again. It feels like the planet is whispering a bedtime story, one it has told for billions of years, that everything changes, but nothing ends. I land gently at the edge of the shore. The sand is cool beneath me, the wind soft against my face. The moonlight pools across the beach, turning every grain into a tiny mirror. I lie down, letting the rhythm of the tide become my breath. Inhale, the sea comes closer. Exhale, it drifts away. Inhale, the sound deepens. Exhale, the stars seem to dim just a little. The longer I breathe, the slower time becomes. I can feel the pull of the moon. Subtle but steady, not just in the water around me, but in my own pulse, my own quiet tide within. My heart beats to her rhythm. My thoughts begin to dissolve, like foam melting back into the sea. Somewhere far away, waves crash against cliffs. Somewhere closer, a gull stirs in its sleep. The night hums in harmony, soft and distant, 1,000 tiny sounds blending into one continuous sigh. The moon moves a little higher, her light brighter now, more focused. She seems to lean closer, as if to speak, but she does not need words. Her message is simple, and I can feel it more than hear it. Rest. You are part of this rhythm too. The stars shimmer faintly, their light crossing the universe to reach this quiet shore. Each one a heartbeat of some faraway sun, each one part of the same song. I close my eyes. The tide presses softly against my skin. The water lifts me slightly, then sets me down again. It feels like breathing with the world. And as I drift, I think of everything that has come before. The first observers who watched the tides and saw mystery, the dreamers who saw gods and love stories written in the sky, the scientists who found truth in motion, beauty in order, the creatures who live between the tides, trusting the return of the sea, all of them, all of us, moving in the same rhythm, the same dance that began before memory, and will outlast us all. The moon will keep her vigil long after this moment ends. She will continue her quiet orbit, pulling softly at the earth's oceans, guiding the tides, marking the passage of time. And somewhere, someone else will stand on a distant shore, listening to the same hush of waves, feeling the same pull of peace. Because the moon never stops singing. Her song is gravity and grace, distance and devotion. Her light falls on every living thing, equal and kind, reminding us that we belong to something vast and yet gentle enough to cradle us as we sleep. The sea moves closer again, lapping softly at my hands, my arms, my chest. The sound grows fainter, not because it's fading, but because I am. My thoughts scatter like sand in the surf. My breath slows to match the earth's. The world becomes softer, rounder, dimmer. The stars blur into streaks of light. The horizon fades into silver haze, and in that blur, the moon seems to move closer still, her glow surrounding me like a blanket, her rhythm whispering in every cell of my body. She hums the song of tides, the lullaby of gravity, the ancient melody that has rocked oceans and hearts alike since the beginning. Her voice is the sea, her voice is time, her voice is home, and as I sink into the warmth of that sound, the tide lifts me one last time, carrying me not away, but deeper into quiet, into rest, into peace. The moonlight drifts across the waves, silver turning to white, white turning to dream. And I hear her whisper soft as the first breath of night. Sleep now. The world is moving still. You are safe in its rhythm. You are part of the tide. The water folds over me like silk. The stars fade into nothingness. And the last sound I hear before the dark claims me completely is the gentle heartbeat of the earth. Slow, steady, eternal.